The formula of forgiveness. Marcus Chen stood at the customer service counter of his flagship supermarket, watching the security monitors from behind mirrored glass. He did this sometimes, observed his stores incognito, ensuring the customer experience matched his vision. Building a retail empire from a single corner shop had taught him that details mattered. That's when he saw her. The woman at the returns desk clutched 3 cans of premium baby formula, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself invisible. She wore a faded coat despite the spring warmth, and her hands trembled as she placed the items on the counter. Marcus leaned closer to the screen, his breath catching. Something about her posture, the way she tucked a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I need to return these," she said quietly, her voice barely audible through the audio feed. "I have the receipt." The cashier, a young man named Devon, smiled professionally. "No problem, ma'am. May I ask the reason for the return?" The woman's cheeks flushed crimson. I can't afford them." "I thought I could, but—" Marcus's heart stopped. He knew that voice. He'd know it anywhere, even after 5 years. Elena. His hand moved to the intercom button, then froze. What would he even say? The woman he'd divorced, the one he'd accused of caring more about his money than him, was returning baby formula because she couldn't afford it. Baby formula. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Elena had a child. "Of course," Devon said, his voice kind. "Let me process this for you." Marcus watched Elena's reflection in the plexiglass barrier. She looked exhausted, dark circles under eyes that had once sparkled with mischief and warmth. Those same eyes that had looked at him on their wedding day, full of hope and love, before the suspicion had consumed him. Before he'd let his father's warnings about gold diggers poison everything good between them. "Marcus, every woman who looks at you sees dollar signs," his father had said. "That girl came from nothing. What else could she want from you?" He'd been 26 and stupid enough to listen, stupid enough to let paranoia transform him into someone cruel. Every gift Elena had been pleased with became evidence of her greed. Every nice restaurant she'd suggested was proof she was using him. When she'd defended herself, he'd accused her of being defensive. The final fight had been nuclear. He'd thrown papers at her, a prenup amendment that would give her nothing if she left. "Sign it if you really love me," he'd demanded. "Prove this isn't about money." She'd looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "I can't prove something to someone determined not to believe it. I'm done trying." She'd walked out with nothing but her clothes and her dignity. He'd been too proud to chase her, too convinced he'd been right. And now she was here, returning baby formula. His Elena, who'd once dreamed of opening a literacy center for underprivileged kids, was counting pennies to feed a child that could have been theirs. Devon handed Elena her refund, 60-some 42s. She clutched the bills like they were treasure, whispering a thank you. Marcus bolted from the security office. He reached the customer service area just as Elena turned to leave, and they collided. The cash scattered across the floor like confetti. "I'm so sorry, Elena began, dropping to her knees to collect the bills. Marcus knelt beside her, his hand closing over hers as they both reached for a 20. She looked up, and their eyes met. He watched recognition dawn on her face, followed by something that looked like panic. "Marcus." His name came out as barely a whisper. "Eleanor." He couldn't seem to make his voice work properly. Up close, he could see she'd lost weight. Her wedding ring was gone, replaced by a thin silver band on her right hand. Let me help you." She snatched her hand back, gathering the remaining bills with quick, jerky movements. "I don't need your help." The words stung, but he deserved them. "Please, can we talk? 5 minutes? I have to go." She stood, shoving the money into her purse. "You have a baby." The words tumbled out before he could stop them. Elena's face went pale, then red. "That's none of your business." I know it's not. But Elena, you're returning formula because you can't afford it, and what? You want to swoop in and play hero?" Her voice cracked. "I learned my lesson about accepting anything from you, Marcus. It always comes with strings." The accusation hit its mark. He thought of the prenup, the way he'd monitored their joint account, how he'd questioned every purchase. God he'd been such a fool. "No strings," he said. "I swear. Just please. There's a cafe next door. 5 minutes." She looked toward the exit, clearly calculating her escape route. Then her shoulders sagged. 5 minutes. That's all. The cafe was one of Marcus's properties too, though he didn't tell her that. They sat in a corner booth, 2 cups of coffee growing cold between them. "How old?" Marcus asked quietly. Elena wrapped her hands around her mug. "She's 4 months. Her name is Sophie. He had a daughter." No, Elena had a daughter. He had no right to claim any connection. "She's beautiful, I assume," he said, trying to smile. "She's everything." For the first time, Elena's face softened. "She has these tiny hands that grab onto my finger like I'm her whole world. And when she smiles—" She stopped abruptly, as if remembering who she was talking to. Marcus wanted to ask the question burning through him, but couldn't find the words. Finally, Elena answered it anyway. "She's not yours, if that's what you're wondering." Her voice was flat. "I met someone about 6 months after our divorce. A teacher named David. We were together for a while." "Were?" Elena's jaw tightened. "He left when I got pregnant. Turned out he wasn't ready to be a father. I haven't heard from him since." The rage that surged through Marcus surprised him with its intensity. "He abandoned you?" "People leave." She met his eyes directly. "I've learned not to be surprised by it." The implication hung between them like smoke. He'd left her too in every way that mattered, long before she'd walked out the door. "Elena, what I did to you—" "Don't." She held up a hand. "I didn't come here for an apology or a trip down memory lane. You wanted 5 minutes. Say what you need to say." Marcus took a breath. "I was an idiot. A paranoid, insecure idiot who let my father's poison turn me into someone unrecognizable. I accused you of being with me for money when the truth was you were the only person who'd ever seen me as just Marcus. Not Marcus Chen, heir to a fortune, just me." Elena's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because seeing you return baby formula broke something in me. Because I've spent 5 years trying to convince myself I did the right thing, that I protected myself from being used. But the truth is, you never used me. I used my own fear as an excuse to push away the best thing that ever happened to me." "That doesn't change anything," Elena said quietly. "I'm still broke. I'm still a single mother working 2 jobs and barely making rent. And you're still you." "Let me help," Marcus said. "Please. No strings, no conditions, just—" "I can't." Elena stood abruptly. "You don't understand. If I let you help, if I let you back into my life even a little bit, and then you leave again." She shook her head. "I can survive losing you twice. But Sophie deserves better than a mother who's constantly heartbroken." She turned to leave, and Marcus felt panic claw at his chest. He couldn't let her walk away again. Not like this. "I'm Sophie's godfather," he blurted out. Elena froze, turning back slowly. "What?" "I mean, I'd like to be, if you'll let me." The words were coming faster now, desperate and unplanned. "Not as your ex-husband. Not as someone trying to win you back or control you. Just as someone who cares about you both and wants to help. Someone who's asking to be in your life. With no expectations of romance or reconciliation. Just let me be there for Sophie. And for you." "Why would you want that?" Marcus stood, keeping the table between them, a safe distance. "Because I failed you once, and I can't change that. But maybe I can do better now. Maybe I can show you that I've learned something in 5 years. That I'm not the same person who was too proud, and too scared to trust the woman he loved." "Loved?" Elena repeated, her voice barely audible. Past tense. He met her eyes. "I never stopped. I was just too broken to know what to do with it." Elena didn't say yes that day, but she didn't say no either. She agreed to let Marcus buy the formula. "Just until I get paid next week," she insisted, though they both knew it was about more than 1 week. And then hesitantly she let him meet Sophie. The first time Marcus held the baby, something inside him shifted. Sophie looked up at him with Elena's dark eyes. A tiny fist wrapped around his finger, and he understood what Elena had meant about being someone's whole world. "Hi, little one," he whispered. "I'm Marcus, I'm—" I'm going to try to do better. For both of you. In the weeks that followed, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He gave without counting the cost. He paid Eleanor's rent, anonymously at first, until she figured it out and called him in fury. He'd calmly explained that it wasn't about control. It was about making sure Sophie had a stable home. "Let me do this," he'd said. "Not as a billionaire to someone in need. As one human being who cares about another." He set up a trust fund for Sophie's education, then a separate account for Elena's literacy. Sent her dream, the one she'd given up years ago. "I don't want your money," she'd protested. "It's not about what you want," he'd replied gently. "It's about what Sophie deserves, and about making sure that dream of yours doesn't die just because you're fighting to survive." Slowly, carefully, they built something new. Not a romance, not yet, but a friendship based on honesty instead of suspicion. Marcus showed up for Sophie's pediatrician appointments. He babysat when Elena had to work double shifts. He learned to change diapers and warm bottles and rock a crying baby at 3 in the morning. And somewhere in the exhaustion and the baby food stains and the tiny moments of joy, he fell in love all over again. Not with the idea of Elena, but with the woman she'd become. Strong and resilient and fierce in her love for her daughter. 6 months after their reunion in the supermarket, Marcus arrived at Elena's apartment to find her crying on the couch, Sophie asleep in her bassinet beside her. "What's wrong?" He sat beside her, careful to maintain the respectful distance they'd established. "Nothing, everything, She wiped her eyes. "David called today. He wants to meet Sophie." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "After abandoning you both?" "He says he's ready now. That he was scared before, but he's worked through it. He's her father, Marcus. Don't I have to at least consider—" "No," Marcus said firmly. "You don't owe him anything. He made his choice when he walked away. But what if Sophie wants to know him someday? What if I'm being selfish by—" "Eleanor." Marcus turned to face her fully. "You are the least selfish person I've ever known. You've sacrificed everything for that baby. You work yourself to exhaustion to give her a good life. You're not being selfish by protecting her from someone who's proven he's unreliable. But you were unreliable once too," she said quietly. "And you changed. What if he has too?" It was a fair point, and it cut deep. Marcus looked at Sophie, sleeping peacefully, her little chest rising and falling. "If he's serious, he'll prove it over time," Marcus said finally. "He'll show up consistently. He'll build trust slowly. He won't demand immediate access to her life after months of absence." He paused. "And you don't have to decide anything today. Or tomorrow. Take your time. And whatever you decide, I'll support you." Elena looked at him with surprise. "You will?" "I'm not Sophie's father," Marcus said, the words physically painful to say. "I'm just someone who loves her, and you, and wants what's best for both of you, even if that means stepping back." "Loves." Elena's voice was soft. Marcus's heart pounded. He hadn't meant to say it out loud, not yet, but he couldn't take it back now. "Yes," he said simply. "I love you. I never stopped, and I never will. But I'm not asking for anything. Elena, I'm not trying to pressure you or use this as leverage. I'm just being honest." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and took his hand, the first time. She'd initiated physical contact in 6 months. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I'm terrified of trusting you again, of letting you close to Sophie, to me, and then having you decide we're not worth the trouble." "You're worth everything," Marcus said. "Both of you. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving that if you'll let me." They didn't rush. Elena met with David once, with Marcus waiting in the car outside as backup. David had indeed changed. He was remorseful and genuine in his desire to be part of Sophie's life. After careful consideration and consultation with a family therapist, Elena agreed to supervise visits, starting slowly. It was the right choice, and Marcus supported it, even though it hurt to share Sophie with someone else. But David's involvement made him realize something. Biology didn't determine love. He wasn't Sophie's father by blood, but he was present for her first words, her first solid food, the first time she rolled over. He was the one who walked the floor with her during teething. He was family in every way that mattered. One evening, as Marcus was leaving after babysitting, Elena stopped him at the door. "Stay," she said. "For dinner. I'm making spaghetti. Nothing fancy, but stay." He stayed, and he kept staying night after night, until the boundaries between his life and Elena's began to blur. A year after their reunion in the supermarket, Marcus took Eleanor and Sophie to the park. Sophie was toddling now, holding both their hands as she walked unsteadily across the grass. "Marcus," Elena said suddenly, "do you remember what you said to me when you proposed?" He did, every word. "I said I wanted to build a life with you, that I wanted mornings and midnights and everything in between. Do you still mean it?" He stopped walking, turning to face her. Sophie plopped down in the grass between them, grabbing at dandelions. "More than ever," he said. "But I meant what I said about no pressure. I'll wait as long as—" Elena kissed him. It was soft and sweet and tasted like second chances. When they pulled apart, she was crying. "I'm still scared," she whispered, "but I'm tired of letting fear keep me from being happy. And you make me happy. You make us both happy." Marcus pulled her close, Sophie giggling between them. "I promise I'll spend every day earning this. Earning you, both of you." "You already have," Elena said. "You came back. You stayed. You loved us without conditions. That's all I ever wanted." 2 years later, Marcus stood in the same supermarket where he'd seen Elena return baby formula. But this time they were shopping together. Sophie riding in the cart and chattering about everything she saw. "Bananas, Daddy." Sophie pointed enthusiastically. Marcus still felt a surge of emotion every time she called him that. David was Papa, present for weekend visits and important milestones. But Marcus was Daddy, the one who was there every day. "Yes, bananas," Marcus said, grabbing a bunch. "Anything else we need?" Elena consulted her list, her wedding ring, the new one, the one that symbolized a love rebuilt on honesty and trust, glinting in the fluorescent light. "Just formula for the baby," she said, smiling down at her swollen belly. Their son due in 3 months. Marcus steered them toward the baby aisle, past the customer service desk, where their second chance had begun. Devon was still working there, and he waved when he saw them. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen. And Miss Sophie? How's everyone today?" "Perfect," Elena said, and Marcus knew she meant it. They bought the formula without a second thought. Premium brand. No returns needed. On their way out, Marcus added an extra case to their order and asked Devon to set it aside. "For the next parent who can't quite afford it," Marcus explained. "No questions asked, just tell them it's taken care of." Elena squeezed his hand. "That's the 3rd time this month." "It's the least I can do," Marcus said. "Someone once told me that kindness without conditions is the only kind that matters. I'm still learning that lesson." "We both are," Eleanor said softly. As they loaded their car, Sophie sang a nonsense song about bananas. And Marcus felt something he'd never experienced during his first marriage. Pure, uncomplicated joy. He'd built an empire on ambition and fear, but he'd built a family on trust and love, and he finally understood which was worth more. The end. Sometimes the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in second chances and the courage to rebuild what fear once destroyed.